Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called No Extra Work. The year is 2022 and I am an accountant in a medium-sized firm. I take pride in my work, and as a result I will sometimes work outside of my contracted hours in order to get things done properly. During the 2020 period, we lost a few key staff, which increased my workload considerably. Not only was I doing my day-to-day accountancy tasks, but I was also resolving an increasing number of queries that would usually be dealt with by other departments. I thought this will only be temporary, as HR had told me they were recruiting more staff. The end result was that I ended up working additional hours for 3 months in a row. The most senior accountant was pleased with my work. Now, here is where things started to tick me off. I was asked by the managing director of the company to join her in a meeting that week. In this meeting, I was questioned, more like being interrogated, as to why I had been staying at the office late most weeknights. I tried explaining that with the current shortage of staff, there was no way I'd be able to effectively do my job without ensuring that other areas were not taken care of as well. I also explained that I was happy to do the work for now, so long as new staff would be employed eventually. I was then told that my additional help was no longer needed and that it would be sorted out. From now on, you need to stick to your own role within the company and focus on the accounting department. Now, I wouldn't have been upset with this had the managing director shown some sort of gratitude, or even said a simple thank you for all of the extra hours I had put in. Instead, all I got was a ton of attitude and talked down to like a misbehaved child. For the next few weeks, every email that was forwarded to me that wasn't relevant to my contractual obligations was swiftly returned or forwarded to the correct department. Before long, people were up in arms with the delayed communications and issues remaining unresolved for long periods of time. Customers were complaining. Inboxes were flooded with passive-aggressive corporate jargon, and the managing director was one off her feet. Shortly after, some new staff were hired, which relieved the burden. Unfortunately, I never received a formal apology from the managing director. However, she, along with our most senior accountant, decided to offer me a decent pay rise. All is forgiven. The next story is called Snack Times. This was a long time back, almost 10 years. I was working as an IT trainer, and it usually involved training random guys who just walked in off the street to work in a call center to do IT support for a private client. Other than doing the usual classroom bit, if there was a large induction, I'd get roped into doing floor rocking and keeping the newbies right while team leaders spent the day staring at emails. There was a newly promoted team leader who was a bit of a bully. She had already caused a lot of trouble for higher ups by trying to bark orders and get her way, which is never a good idea. I'd happily work through my morning and afternoon breaks to give the newbies help, because it was mostly having a chat and making sure they didn't feel abandoned, which was nice. Because I usually worked through the breaks, I'd sometimes have a snack or a bit of fruit as I went, and when it was reasonable. Q, the team leader mentioned earlier. She reminded me that snacks and eating were only permitted on breaks. Okay, no worries, I thought. At the time, I didn't have to log into any time management system, so I could take my breaks whenever it was suitable. So anytime I felt hungry, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, I grabbed a snack, sat down and put a little card up. I'm on break. Please speak to our team leader for assistance. The team leader mentioned was the nearest to the newbies, so of course they lined up to ask someone who didn't know how to do their job how to do their job. On the first day, there were 1 or 2. The second day, the queue grew. The third day, the team leader asked when my breaks were. I had to advise her it was when the business need was sufficient that I could adequately take my break without causing detrimental impact to the daily operations. The operations manager heard and sniggered and knew I could take my break whenever I pleased. The following week she gave up on emails as they started queuing throughout the day, even when I wasn't on break, and tried to find a deputy that could help between calls. Not long after that, I got bored of the role and moved sideways to second line support and got to keep helping the newbies and oldies while playing with more complicated stuff. I also got to have fun sending tickets back to the team leader with technical explanations as to why they were wrong. And on a few occasions I was requesting escalations to speak to them via their manager, as they were wasting second line's time. The third story is called Great Contract. My wife worked for a small US consultancy decades ago. They were well known in the little niche they served, having several Fortune 50 clients. They decided to expand into Europe, starting with the European divisions of companies they served in the US. Their current staff was busy with the divisions, but there was an untapped market in the suppliers to those divisions. So they approached well-known European consultants who were already working in that niche. Most of those consultants were one-person shops. A sad reality of such shops is that the pay is excellent, but finding and managing clients is almost a second full-time job. The consultancy was paranoid about consultants poaching their clients. So paranoid in fact that their business cards were lighting on a dark background on both sides. That was supposed to prevent the consultants from writing their personal phone numbers on the back of the card and bypassing the consultancy. The consultancy scored a minor coup when it recruited a well-known British consultant. As they sealed the deal, they casually mentioned that they required a stringent non-compete contract with a 1-year term. The consultant balked, they negotiated, and he finally said, "Okay, send me a copy, I'll have my solicitor read it." After that, he signed and joined the firm. They brought him to the US, put him through the train-the-trainer training, gave him their official materials and sent him back to the UK. By all accounts, he was doing a good job. But after a couple of years, he got tired of the job. He was getting all the supplier training and consultant in little backwater towns all over Europe. American teams were flying in to do the divisions in places like London, Paris and Brussels. So he decided to leave. There were no hard feelings, but the US office reminded him of the non-compete. 2 weeks after his last day, he called the US office. He asked why his paycheck wasn't being deposited. The US team learned that in the UK, if you require a non-compete agreement, you are required to continue paying the employee. They offered to mutually end the agreement, but the consultant did not agree. He took a long vacation and wrote a book that was considered the reference for their small niche. The last story is called Hypocrite Manager. I work in a residential facility for people on probation. They can serve out a sentence there on work release, or if they are sentenced to our drug treatment program, so they come and go a lot. Part of my job is sending anything new they bring back to the property office to be inventoried or held as contraband. Stuff that isn't illegal but they can't have in the facility, like chewing tobacco. They are not allowed to bring outside food or drinks, so part of my job is throwing it away if it is perishable or unwrapped. This guy returned with a bag of burgers and burritos, and my job was throwing them away, so I disposed of them. He complained to the policy compliance manager who runs the property office. She told me that I had to get with that client for financial reimbursement. I tried getting her to understand that I threw that stuff away because it would not keep back in the office as her own policy states, and she didn't care. Her words to me were, "Property officers are the ones who sort through the property for contraband or disposable items. Your job is not to review the property, just back it up and label it with their name. Everything goes through property." She even underlined the word everything in her email. It felt like she was making up her own rules despite what the policy said, because she didn't want to deal with a complaining work release inmate. Yesterday, a client returned with a half-eaten bag lunch we provide people leaving for work in case they can't feed themselves. I saw my opportunity. I did exactly what you think and sent a brown bag of half-eaten sandwiches and cornbread to be inventoried as property. I saw her email today, going off on me for being passive-aggressive or that I need to be retrained. She normally doesn't CC anyone else in her emails about issues, but she did today. My direct supervisor, the operations commander and the deputy director were all included, so they could see her shoo me out over the half-eaten food I sent her staff. She must have felt like Obi-Wan having the high ground. Too bad she did in fact underestimate my power. I included even more supervisory stuff in my response and directly quoted her original emails to me. And I pointed out that she told me her staff was the ones that throw things away and that I was to bag and tag everything. I was later told by my laughing supervisor that the director himself laughed as he told her, "You told him to send you everything. You can't get upset because he did what you said." And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and would like to support me, please subscribe and hit the like button. I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.